KFC locations in Erie are closed for health department violations.
The Kentucky Fried Chicken on Fowler Avenue near USF in Tampa was shut down last week.
KFC just made an announcement that should be impossible. Not difficult, not expensive, but impossible. Because the company making it has a documented history of doing the exact opposite of what it just promised. The same parent company owns Taco Bell, which put sand-derived silicon dioxide in its seasoned beef and called it safe. And now Yum! Brands, the publicly traded conglomerate behind all of it, just announced something that no major fast food chain has ever done. We pulled every document and every piece of the history you need to judge whether this announcement means anything at all. 12 things you need to know. Keep a tight grip on your wallet. Let's go. Number 12. The announcement itself. In early 2026, KFC announced a complete overhaul of its chicken sourcing standards across all United States locations. 3 specific commitments. First, a full transition to cage-free chicken housing across the entire domestic supply chain by the end of 2027. Second, the elimination of antibiotics important to human medicine from all chicken products served in U.S. locations. Third, the publication of a full supplier list on a publicly accessible transparency portal. Farm names, certification statuses, third-party audit results published for anyone to check. Read that third commitment again. In the entire history of American fast food, no company operating at KFC's scale has ever published supplier-level audit results in a publicly accessible format. Not McDonald's, not Burger King, not Wendy's, not Chick-fil-A, which conducts rigorous, unannounced audits but does not publish the results. Not one of them. If this holds, KFC will have done something the entire industry has spent decades specifically avoiding. The question every food safety researcher and every KFC customer should be asking right now is not whether the announcement was made. It was made. The question is whether it means anything. And the answer to that question starts with a Shanghai meat facility, a hidden camera, and a corporate response that tells you exactly how seriously to take any Yum! Brand's commitment without independent verification. The answer is at number 11, and it is more alarming than anything in the announcement itself. Number 11. The history that makes this hard to believe. Yum! Brands owns KFC, $6.8 billion in total revenues in 2024, and a supply chain history that should make every customer deeply cautious about trusting any announcement from this company without independent verification. In 2014, investigative journalists used hidden cameras inside a KFC meat supplier facility in Shanghai. What they filmed was not a minor violation. Workers were filmed mixing rotting, green chicken with fresh product, repackaging expired meat with fake expiration dates, picking raw food directly off a filthy factory floor and tossing it onto the processing line. Chinese authorities shut the plant down immediately. KFC issued statements about severing ties with that specific supplier. The systemic low-bid procurement model that produced the problem? It did not change. They fixed the headline. They kept the system. The domestic record is equally specific. Health inspection records from KFC franchise locations across multiple U.S. states show recurring violations for improper chicken cooking temperatures, cross-contamination between raw and cooked products, and sanitation failures in food preparation areas through 2024 and 2025. A KFC location in St. Catharines, Ontario was shut down by health authorities on December 31st, 2025, New Year's Eve. The official reason: premises maintained in an unsanitary condition. They rang in 2026 with a health violation. A former KFC kitchen employee in North Carolina wrote in a food industry forum, "The Colonel obsessed over the precise moment the chicken should leave the fryer. Yum! Brands obsesses over the precise moment profit should leave the financial quarter. Those are not the same obsession. Those are not the same obsession. Yum! Brands is publicly traded. It answers to shareholders every quarter. When a publicly traded company with this specific history makes a sweeping supply chain announcement, the first question is always the same. Who is verifying this? And who is paying for the verification? If watching a company with a documented history of supply chain failures announce a sweeping transformation without independent verification makes your blood boil, subscribe to this channel right now. We are tracking every commitment in this announcement, every audit result posted to that transparency portal, every gap between what KFC promised and what KFC delivered. We will report what we find regardless of what it shows. Done? Good. Number 10. The antibiotic standard is not what it sounds like. The antibiotic commitment in KFC's announcement is the one that food safety researchers are examining most carefully, and the specific language deserves specific attention. KFC committed to eliminating antibiotics important to human medicine. Not all antibiotics. Not a no antibiotics ever standard. Antibiotics important to human medicine. This distinction is the difference between a genuine commitment and a marketing phrase engineered by lawyers. No antibiotics. Important to human medicine means the chicken can still receive antibiotics. Specifically, antibiotics classified as animal-only drugs, under veterinary oversight. In industrial farming environments where the definition of when a bird is sick bends, depending on who is holding the clipboard and what the profit margins look like that quarter. The industry knows this distinction matters. Chick-fil-A proved it in March 2024. Chick-fil-A had previously committed to the stronger no antibiotics ever standard. Then they quietly walked it back to no antibiotics, important to human medicine. The same standard KFC just announced, with a quiet website update that most customers never saw. A food safety researcher who reviewed KFC's announcement language for a 2026 consumer publication wrote, "Customers hearing antibiotic-free KFC in media coverage of this announcement are receiving a materially different message from the one the actual standard delivers. That gap is not accidental, it is crafted." That gap is not accidental. It is crafted. The specific dollar calculation that explains why the stronger standard was never on the table is at number 9. And the number will make clear exactly how seriously Yum! Brands intends to keep this commitment. Number 9. The money that exposes the real motive. Yum! Brands reported $6.8 billion in total revenues in 2024. A genuine no antibiotics ever commitment applied across KFC's entire U.S. chicken supply chain would increase procurement costs by an estimated 15 to 20% according to poultry supply chain economists. On KFC's volume, that increase runs into hundreds of millions of dollars annually. Hundreds of millions. Yum! Brands has not announced a price increase to absorb that cost. It has not announced a margin reduction. It has not announced any operational change suggesting a cost increase of that magnitude is being absorbed anywhere in the business. What Yum! Brands announced is the standard that does not require the more expensive chicken. The no antibiotics, important to human medicine standard allows continued use of animal-only antibiotics, which are significantly cheaper to manage in industrial poultry production than a full antibiotic elimination protocol. The announcement generates the positive consumer response of a genuine commitment. The operational cost is a fraction of what a genuine commitment would require. A poultry supply chain economist who reviewed the announcement for an industry publication wrote, "The financial profile of this commitment is consistent with a marketing decision, not a sourcing decision. A sourcing decision of this magnitude would appear in the cost structure. It has not appeared. It has not appeared." What number 8 reveals is the specific structure of the transparency portal that explains exactly why the word transparency in this context means something much narrower than it sounds. Number 8. The transparency portal is designed to look like transparency. KFC's announcement of a publicly accessible transparency portal sounds like a genuine breakthrough. It is not nothing. Publishing any supplier information publicly is more than most of KFC's competitors have done. But the specific architecture of what is being published requires careful reading. The portal publishes supplier names and certification statuses. It does not publish audit scores. It publishes whether a supplier passed its most recent audit. It does not publish what was found during audits that were subsequently corrected. It publishes certifications at the time of posting. It does not publish how frequently those certifications are re-verified. A supplier that passed an audit 6 months ago and has since changed its practices appears on the portal as a certified supplier, identical to a supplier that has never had a single violation. The portal creates the impression of transparency. The specific information it excludes is precisely the information that would allow a consumer to make a meaningful safety assessment. A food transparency researcher who analyzed the portal's data architecture for a 2026 publication wrote, "This portal is designed to be better than nothing in a way that generates the impression of full disclosure without requiring it. The architecture of what is included and what is excluded is not accidental. The architecture is not accidental." What number 7 reveals is the competitor response that arrived within 3 weeks of KFC's announcement, and what that response tells you about whether any of this is real. Number 7. Popeyes did the exact same thing 3 weeks later. Within 3 weeks of KFC's sourcing announcement, Popeyes made its own announcement. Popeyes, also owned by Restaurant Brands International, announced a parallel commitment to antibiotic standards and supplier transparency, also using the no antibiotics important to human medicine standard, also promising a transparency portal, also invoking quality heritage framing. 3 weeks. The same standard, the same portal concept, from a company with its own specific supply chain problems. In 2025, a major poultry supplier sued Popeyes for $35 million. The lawsuit explicitly alleged that the supplier warned Popeyes that a rival meat provider was selling rotten and unsafe raw chicken out of residential garages, in unmarked personal vehicles, without refrigeration. According to the court filings, the supplier who raised that alarm was dropped. The allegedly problematic supplier was retained. A chain with that specific allegation in its recent legal history, announcing a supplier transparency commitment within 3 weeks of a competitor's identical announcement, is a chain that identified marketing urgency, not operational transformation. What number 6 reveals is the franchise structure that makes both announcements nearly impossible to keep, regardless of corporate intent. Hit the like button right now if you think fast food customers deserve to know the specific difference between a corporate announcement and what actually happens in the franchise kitchen where their food is made. We will keep documenting that difference every single week. Done? Good. Number 6. The franchise problem that makes this almost impossible. KFC's US locations are almost entirely franchise operated. Individual franchise operators own and run the restaurants. They purchase chicken from approved suppliers within the Yum! Brands supply chain network. The sourcing commitment applies to the approved supplier network. It does not change what happens to the chicken once it arrives at the franchise location. It does not change the training level of the staff handling the chicken. It does not change the equipment maintenance schedules that determine whether the pressure fryers cook to the temperature and time specifications that food safety requires. Health inspection records from KFC franchise locations show recurring violations specifically at the kitchen level. Temperature violations, cross-contamination, sanitation failures. A franchise operator in Tennessee who has run KFC locations for over a decade described the corporate franchise dynamic to a restaurant trade publication. Corporate makes sourcing commitments. We implement kitchen protocols. The gap between a supplier standard and what actually happens in my kitchen on a Saturday night with 2 people calling in sick is not a gap that a transparency portal closes. Not a gap that a transparency portal closes. The Colonel understood this gap. He spent years after selling the company in 1964 publicly condemning what the corporate structure did to his kitchens. He called the new corporate gravy horrible and pure wallpaper paste. He called the new crispy recipe a damn fried dough ball stuck on some chicken. His face is still on every bucket. Still selling chicken he publicly condemned. What number 5 reveals is the specific competitor that responded to KFC's announcement with the loudest possible silence, and what that silence tells you. Number 5. Chick-fil-A said nothing, and that silence is informative. Chick-fil-A has not responded to KFC's announcement. Not a statement, not a press release, not a social media post. Silence. And the silence is worth reading. Chick-fil-A conducts unannounced third-party audits of every supplier and every location. It has done this for years. It does not publish the results publicly. When KFC announced a public transparency portal, Chick-fil-A's silence was not the silence of a company with nothing to say. It was the silence of a company that knows exactly what a transparency portal designed by a PR team looks like, and has decided not to dignify it with a response. Chick-fil-A's approach to supply chain quality is worth contrasting specifically against KFC's announcement. Chick-fil-A conducts unannounced audits. KFC's portal relies on scheduled certifications. Chick-fil-A uses a closed supply chain of personally vetted farms. KFC uses an open commodity purchasing network with a certification overlay. Chick-fil-A cooks to order, eliminating the heat lamp holding time that creates bacterial growth risk. KFC's franchise operations use holding protocols that health inspectors have repeatedly cited for temperature violations. Every structural difference between the two operations points in the same direction. One company built its safety record through operational discipline. The other built a portal to announce its intention to pursue operational discipline. Those are not equivalent achievements. And Chick-fil-A's silence on KFC's announcement reflects a company that understands the difference. Chick-fil-A's food safety record is the strongest in the quick service category, built on unannounced audits, closed supply chains, cooking-to-order protocols that eliminate holding time risks. That record was not built by publishing a portal, it was built by doing the work. The distinction between doing the work and announcing the work is the central question of KFC's 2026 commitment. A food safety consultant who works with multiple major quick service chains wrote in an industry newsletter, "The chains with the best safety records do not make announcements about their safety records. They let the inspection records speak." When a chain with KFC's history makes this kind of announcement, the question is always what changed operationally to justify the marketing claim? What changed operationally to justify the marketing claim? That question does not yet have a satisfying answer. What number 4 reveals is the specific independent action that food safety researchers are recommending consumers take right now in response to this announcement. Number 4. What food safety researchers are actually telling you to do. Food safety researchers who reviewed KFC's announcement are not telling consumers to trust it. They are not telling consumers to reject it. They are telling consumers to verify it. 3 specific verification actions. First, check the transparency portal quarterly, rather than at announcement. A portal populated at announcement reflects the supply chain at the moment of maximum corporate attention. The supply chain 6 months later, when the press coverage has faded and the quarterly earnings pressure has reasserted itself, is the supply chain that matters. Second, cross-reference portal supplier listings against FDA import alerts and USDA enforcement records. Both databases are publicly accessible, both update in real time. A supplier listed as certified on KFC's portal that simultaneously appears in an FDA import alert is a portal that has failed to update accurately. Third, monitor health inspection records for KFC franchise locations in your specific market. The sourcing commitment changes what arrives at the restaurant. The inspection record reveals what happens after it arrives. A supplier commitment without a corresponding improvement in franchise-level food safety compliance is a commitment that stops at the loading dock. A consumer advocate who has tracked fast food supply chain commitments for over a decade wrote in a 2026 guidance document, "Verify quarterly, cross-reference publicly, monitor locally." Any company that objects to customers doing this verification has told you everything you need to know about how seriously they take the commitment. Any company that objects to customers doing this verification has told you everything. KFC has not objected, yet. What number 3 reveals is the third-party certification system that KFC's portal relies on, and why the financial structure of that system makes the word independent deeply misleading. Number 3. The certification system is not independent. Third-party certification organizations verify supplier compliance. KFC's transparency portal relies on these certifications. The problem is structural and specific. Third-party certification organizations are paid by the suppliers they certify. The financial relationship between certifier and certified is a conflict of interest that every food safety researcher who works in this space acknowledges. A supplier that pays a third-party certifier for annual certification has a client relationship with the organization that is supposed to provide independent oversight. That relationship does not guarantee bad outcomes. It structurally incentivizes the certifier to maintain the relationship by not producing findings that would end it. KFC's transparency portal presents certifications produced by organizations paid by KFC's suppliers as independent verification. They are not independent in any financial sense of the word. The FDA inspects less than 1% of all imported food products. The USDA's enforcement resources for domestic poultry supply chain oversight are similarly limited relative to the volume they are responsible for monitoring. The gap between what the certification language implies and what the verification system actually produces is the gap that every major food safety failure in American fast food history has exploited. A food system policy researcher who has studied third-party certification structures for over a decade wrote in a 2026 policy brief, "The certification system that most major food companies use for supply chain transparency is structurally incapable of producing the independent verification that the transparency language implies. The certifier's financial relationship with the certified is the fundamental problem that no portal resolves. The fundamental problem that no portal resolves." What number 2 reveals is the one structural change that would make KFC's announcement genuinely meaningful, and why the industry will spend significant resources making sure that change never happens. Number 2. The one thing that would make this real. KFC's announcement would be genuinely meaningful under one specific condition: independent government-funded auditing, paid for by a neutral fund rather than by the suppliers themselves. Audit results published in a government-accessible database rather than a company-controlled portal. Quarterly, unannounced inspections rather than annual scheduled certifications. That system would transform a marketing announcement into an operational commitment with actual teeth. Yum! Brands has not proposed that system. No major fast food company has proposed that system. The reason no major fast food company has proposed it tells you everything about what the current announcement actually is. Independent auditing paid for by neutral funding would reveal what is actually happening in supplier facilities without the filter of a financial relationship between auditor and audited. Unannounced quarterly inspections would reveal conditions between the scheduled annual certifications the current system relies on. A government-accessible database would allow regulators, researchers, and consumers to monitor compliance over time and identify patterns that a company-controlled portal is structurally incentivized not to highlight. The industry has had the option to build this system for decades. It has not built it. It has built a succession of transparency initiatives that generate positive consumer response while maintaining operational control over what the transparency reveals. KFC's 2026 announcement is the latest iteration of that succession. A food policy researcher who reviewed the full announcement and verification architecture wrote, "This is the most sophisticated sourcing announcement a major fast food chain has made. It is sophisticated specifically in the way it is designed to be believed. That sophistication is the reason to read it carefully rather than accept it at face value." Read it carefully rather than accept it at face value. What number 1 reveals is the specific thing that would need to happen for that careful reading to produce a different conclusion in 12 months, and how you can participate in making it happen. Number 1. What has to happen? Next, KFC made an announcement. Announcements are the beginning of accountability, not the end of it. The Colonel spent years after the 1964 sale publicly condemning what Yum Brands' predecessor company did to his chicken. He called the gravy wallpaper paste. He called the crispy recipe a fried dough ball. The man whose face is still on every bucket tried to warn everyone. In 2026, Yum Brands is using that face to announce a sourcing commitment structured to maximize marketing impact while minimizing operational disruption to the industrial chicken supply chain that the Colonel specifically and publicly condemned. What has to happen next is specific. Consumer organizations need to file quarterly FOIA requests for FDA and USDA inspection records at every supplier listed on KFC's transparency portal. Food safety researchers need to commission independent laboratory testing of KFC chicken products at franchise locations across multiple states on an unannounced basis. State health departments need to prioritize KFC franchise locations for unannounced inspections through the commitment period, specifically checking whether franchise-level food handling practices reflect the sourcing standard that corporate announced. And customers need to stop treating corporate announcements as evidence of corporate behavior. The evidence of corporate behavior is in the inspection record. None of that evidence suggests that an announcement published on a company-controlled portal without independent funding, independent auditing, or independent verification architecture represents a genuine operational transformation. It might. In 12 months, the inspection records and the audit results will tell us. Until then, the Colonel's face on the bucket is doing the same thing it has been doing since 1964. Selling chicken, he told us, was not his chicken anymore. To customers he hoped were not listening. A food policy researcher who has spent 15 years studying fast food supply chain commitments wrote the sentence that closes this entire story. Every major fast food supply chain commitment in American history has been judged by what happened after the announcement. KFC's will be judged the same way. The announcement is not the story. What happens next is the story. What happens next is the story. We will be there when it happens. The 12 months following this announcement are the accountability window, not the announcement itself. The specific metrics that will tell whether KFC kept this commitment are not complicated. Critical violation rates at KFC franchise locations should decline measurably if the sourcing and operational changes announced are genuinely implemented. Supplier listings on the transparency portal should update in real time when a supplier fails an audit rather than remaining listed as certified until the next annual review cycle. The antibiotic standard should be independently tested through laboratory analysis of chicken products purchased at franchise locations across multiple states, not through testing coordinated with corporate. If those three things happen, the announcement will have been the beginning of something real. If they do not happen, the announcement will join the long list of fast food sourcing commitments that generated positive press coverage and produced no measurable change in what ends up on the plate. The Colonel did not accept excuses about operational complexity when his gravy tasted wrong. He called it wallpaper paste. Out loud, to anyone who would listen. That standard is the one KFC invoked when it put his face on the announcement. It is the standard the announcement will be held to. Thanks for watching. If this changed how you think about fast food sourcing announcements, drop a comment below and tell us whether you think KFC will keep this commitment. Tell us what you think should happen to hold them accountable. We are tracking every audit result, every inspection record, and every gap between what was promised and what was delivered for the next 12 months. The story is not over. It is just starting. Want to see which other fast food chains are making similar announcements with similar verification gaps? Click the video on the left. I will meet you there.